Good evening, Earthlings. If you're like me, you've puzzled as to why anyone would choose to believe the lies that are being told to us by anyone, but most particularly people that are in Congress, and most importantly, the President of the United States, who spews lies out at every conversation that he has. I find it puzzling how a young woman can get up in front of a bunch of journalists and spew out the propaganda that's been put before her with such conviction. The podcast that you're about to listen to is from a blog post at crazyoldgringo.mx. That's crazyoldgringo.mx. You can go there to read more about it. It will have links to information that you might find helpful. In the meantime, enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. You sent over a really interesting piece this time. It's a blog post from Crazy Old Gringo, and it asks a pretty basic question, right? How good are we actually at spotting a lie?
Yeah, it's fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this blogger, they don't just like throw out opinions. They dig into some surprising ideas and really try to debunk common myths.
Exactly. So our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is to kind of unpack those insights, figure out what they mean for, how we understand truth and deception day to day.
And the source material is pretty cool. It blends the blogger's own experience, apparently as an investigator, with some philosophical ideas and research findings. It sets things up nicely.
Totally. It's a critical question, especially now with the sheer amount of information flying around. And, well, not all of it's exactly accurate.
It's not even close sometimes. What grabbed me about this post was that mix the real-world investigation stuff alongside philosophy and actual research. It makes you think about why we believe stuff and why spotting lies is, well, harder than it looks.
Absolutely. And the blog kind of throws us right in, doesn't it, with this thing called the Nietzsche thesis. Comes from a philosopher, Joseph Schubert.
Right, the Nietzsche thesis. Okay, so the core idea, it's not that we're always like perfectly logical truth detectors in every conversation. That's not the main goal, maybe.
So what is the main goal, according to this thesis?
Well, Schubert suggests it might be less about finding the absolute capital T truth and more about how we look.
Mm-hmm.
Presenting ourselves well, improving our social standing, sort of social climbing, essentially.
Huh. Social climbing. That's a bit cynical, maybe.
It sounds, yeah.
Ah.
But the implication is interesting. It suggests that when we hear something, or even form our own views, we might subconsciously be thinking, does this make me look smart? Does it fit with what my group believes?
So the usefulness for fitting in or looking good could actually outweigh how true the information actually is.
That's the idea, that social usefulness can act as a surprisingly strong filter, sometimes stronger than, factual accuracy.
Wow, okay. And it gets stickier too, right? The blog mentions that once we've decided something is true, even if evidence comes along later proving it wrong.
Uh-huh. We might just dig in our heels, resist the truth, maybe just to save face, to avoid admitting we were wrong or, look foolish.
Yeah, ego getting in the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that ties into this broader idea of motivational bias, doesn't it?
Right, motivational bias. Explain that a bit.
Well, it's our tendency to look for and interpret information in ways that just confirm what we already believe. So if a lie happens to fit nicely with our worldview,
we might just accept it without really questioning it, even if the facts aren't there.
Precisely. It's a powerful psychological force. It really shapes what we even perceive as being true.
So it's less about being these objective seekers of truth and maybe more about playing a social game where our beliefs affect our status.
That seems to be the suggestion, yeah. And then there's that statistic the blog brought up, the one that kind of stops you in your tracks.
Oh, yeah, the accuracy rate. What was it?
Research suggests our accuracy in detecting lies is only around 54%. 54.
Which is basically flipping a coin. Barely better than chance. That's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Most of the time, we're just guessing.
It really is a critical takeaway. And the blogger adds their own experience here, which makes it compelling. As an investigator, interviewing Tons of people.
Right, and they mentioned getting training from pros like FBI agents, people you'd think would be amazing at this.
Exactly. And even with all that training and experience, the blogger says their own accuracy only hit about 66%.
66%. Okay, better than 54, sure, but still wrong a third of the time. If the experts are wrong that often.
Then what hope do the rest of us have? Just relying on gut feelings or those common myths about liars?
Yeah, it really shows how tough lie detection actually is. And maybe why those common beliefs are, well, not so reliable.
Absolutely. It just highlights the sheer complexity of deception. And if even trained folks struggle, what does that say about us relying on intuition day to day? We might be working with some really flawed assumptions.
Okay, well, that leads us perfectly into debunking some of those assumptions, those myths. The blog goes through a few common ones. Let's start with eye movement. You know, the classic, right? Look up and left, you're remembering. Look up and right.
You're making it up. Yeah, that one's everywhere. Popular culture loves it.
But is it true?
Well, the science basically says no. Research has pretty much debunked it. There's just no consistent link between where someone looks and whether they're lying. Eye movements depend on loads of things.
Like how they access information? Or maybe just habit?
Exactly. Spatial awareness, habit, how their brain is wired to retrieve stuff, it's way too complex to just pin it on lying.
Okay, so that's one miss down. What about nervousness? Fidgeting, stuttering, maybe touching the face? We often think that's a dead giveaway, right? That they're anxious because they're lying.
It seems logical on the surface, yeah. But the key thing to remember is those behaviors can show stress or discomfort.
Yeah.
But stress doesn't automatically equal lying.
So someone could be nervous for other reasons.
Totally. Maybe they're just shy. Maybe the situation itself is stressful, like a job interview or being questioned by, well, an investigator. Maybe they're just uncomfortable. Jumping from nervous straight to liar is a really shaky leap.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, what about facial expressions? We're always told to look for, like, shifty eyes or a smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes.
Expressions definitely show emotions: joy, sadness, anger, surprise. We're pretty good at reading basic emotions from faces. But they're not a foolproof lie detector.
Why not?
Well, for one, good liars can often control their faces, put on a calm, believable front. And on the flip side, a truthful person might just look nervous or shifty because they are nervous, even though they're telling the truth. Or maybe cultural differences come into play in how emotions are shown.
So reading faces is also tricky. Nuanced.
Very nuanced. Relying only on fleeting facial cues is pretty risky.
Okay, last myth the blog mentioned. Crossing arms. I've definitely heard that. Crossed arms means someone's defensive, closed off, maybe hiding something, therefore lying.
Yeah, another popular one. But again, the evidence just isn't there to support it as a reliable sign of deception.
So why do people cross their arms?
Often it's just comfortable.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're cold. Or maybe they're just creating a bit of personal space in the conversation. It's much more likely about posture or comfort than it is about active deception.
Wow. It sounds like pretty much all the common tells we think we know. Eye direction, fidgeting, facial tics, body language, like crossed arms. They're not reliable indicators of lying at all. They're more likely just signs of stress, discomfort, something else entirely.
That's largely what the evidence suggests, yeah. Our built-in lie detector, what the blogger calls our epistemic vigilance, it might not be nearly as fine-tuned as we'd like to believe.
Okay, so if our individual lie detectors are kind of faulty, how does this connect back to those bigger things the blog mentioned, like conspiracy theories and echo chambers?
Right, let's connect those dots. Think back to the Nietzsche thesis. If our goal isn't always pure truth, but maybe more about social acceptance or reinforcing our identity,
then we might be more likely to accept information, even iffy information, if it fits with our group or makes us feel like we belong.
Exactly. Conspiracy theories, for instance, can provide that sense of shared understanding, a community, even if the factual basis is shaky. They resonate because they fit a certain narrative or worldview we share with others.
And echo chambers just make that worse, by only showing us stuff we already agree with.
Precisely. If you're only hearing opinions that mirror your own, you become less likely to question them, less likely to even encounter contradictory facts, let alone critically evaluate them. It reinforces the beliefs, whether they're true or not, and makes it harder to spot falsehoods that align with the groupthink.
That's a really powerful connection. So our individual difficulty in spotting lies face-to-face is kind of mirrored on a larger scale by how misinformation can spread so easily when it taps into our social needs and biases.
You got it. And the implications here are pretty huge, right? They touch on things that affect everyone. The blog mentions worries about eyewitness testimony in court.
Yeah, if we're only 54% accurate, how reliable is an eyewitness, especially under stress? That has massive implications for the legal system.
Huge. How much weight should we give testimony if our basic ability to tell truth from lies is so limited? It raises fundamental questions about justice.
And beyond courtrooms, just in daily life, we make judgments about people's honesty constantly, often based on these flimsy cues we just debunked.
All the time. It forces us to admit, maybe, that our judgments aren't purely objective. Our desire to fit in, to protect our belief, to feel connected to these things can really cloud our perception of what's true.
So acknowledging these limits is maybe the first step.
It's a crucial step, yeah. Just recognizing our own fallibility in detecting lies and understanding those social pressures, that helps you navigate this complex information world a bit more cautiously, perhaps.
Which brings us, I guess, to the final big question the blogger leaves us with, that really provocative one. Are we truth seekers or social climbers?
Yeah, that's the kicker, isn't it? It's real food for thought.
It really is. It makes you reflect, doesn't it? On your own motives when you hear something new or talk to someone. Am I really after the truth here? Or am I more concerned with how this makes me look or whether it fits with my crowd?
Tough question. Probably no simple answer. Right, maybe it's a mix. But just asking it, being aware of that potential conflict within ourselves, that's valuable. That's self-awareness.
Definitely something for listeners to chew on. How might knowing this about our iffy lie detection skills, about the pull of the social hemorrhage, how might that change how you evaluate information from now on? Or how you judge someone's truthfulness?
It's a reminder, isn't it, that a truth is maybe more tangled up with social stuff than we usually admit.
It really is. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Lots to think about.